And so through this program, we were able to craft an opportunity, again, following the lead of Customs and Border Protection, where we learn what artificial intelligence and these surveillance towers with different types of systems can do for us there on the base. Meanwhile, that understanding starts to craft our vision, or what are the use cases. So that is an ongoing program that we have with them now. Now, why is that important? What I walked you through is kind of the ecosystem, in this case with the digital fortress and protection vector, that we fostered, and some of the fruit that's come from it, so that we have a seat at the table, if you will, to the emerging technology and how it'll fit our needs in our program on the future of what bases are. That's what this event's going to be about as well, but in the case of mobility. We had, when was that? September of last year. We had our protection vector. So we came together again with a crowd in Quantico, Virginia, and we had a design think process with other agencies and industry. Again, going through design think so that we're crafting that vision of what does this digital fortress look like? How can we craft a vision in such a way that we can find those stepping stones that'll lead us in that direction? Then in January, we had our Resilience Symposium in Hawaii. Colonel Lyonez is here today. You'll hear from him, the station commander at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. Resilience is all about, no matter what happens external to the base, that we can maintain our critical mission for 14 days. And it impacts food, energy, water, communications, and logistical mobility. You'll hear a little bit more about that vector and what we did in Hawaii and what we did following Hawaii here shortly. So I mentioned collaborative markets. That is what we think is critical to our success. We think it is a great equalizer to us. It disrupts the kind of bureaucratic right requirements, resource requirements, move forward when you don't know what the emerging capabilities are. We believe that finding collaborative opportunities that are mutually beneficial and through a host of means, which we'll cover, is how we move forward and how we do stuff fast. This is all about speed and agility, trying things, trying them quickly, trying them in diverse locations or representative locations that we can pull out the implications across our bases. What I didn't mention is Marine Corps Installations Command, 24 bases around the world. Some of them are centralized, some of them are decentralized, urban, rural. So what we have today is we're going to talk about, in the context of mobility, is a couple of representative bases that'll help us craft this vision. What you see on the board is the co-collaborators, if you will, that are joining us today. So some of you are here to be on panels, and we'll have more panelists that are coming throughout the day. Some of you are here to lead exhibits from 11 to 5:30, the exhibit time. Some of you are here to join us tomorrow and the next day with a smaller crowd of how we, again, use design think to craft those visions of the future. So we thank you. It's critical to our success. All right, the last thing I'll say before Colonel Dockery comes up and welcomes you to Miramar is these vectors for Installation Next. I mentioned earlier protection. Protection, obviously, we are the Marine Corps, national defense. Protection is our #1 priority. Our digital fortress is that vision, as I mentioned. Resilience, the 14 days mission, and how we move ourselves to be more resilient. We're going to talk about mobility today later, the movement of people and goods, multimodal opportunities. So maintenance, we're doing an augmented reality maintenance pilot with the help of some partners in the room, actually, on Camp Pendleton, where remote assist, an expert master craftsman or master technician, if you will, that's back in the office, can reach out through virtual reality or augmented support and support the guy in the field as they see on the ground what the problems are. And so how can we tie those together? Again, collaborative opportunities that we've crafted. We also have community. How do we break down the barriers between us and the community out in the base, but also, as you see in mobility, How do we offer the same types of services that our service members have whenever they're home, if they live off base, or if they're traveling out in town? How do we unlock those opportunities within our bureaucracy of the Marine Corps and our installations? We have command and control. We have operational reach, training. And then we added a new one recently, the 9th vector, which is data. How do we tap into, how do we access, and how do we utilize the data that's available or should be available to us as we move forward on our installations? So with that, I gave you an overview of Installation Next. We're going to talk more about mobility here in a moment. I'd like to welcome up Colonel Dockery. I believe we're showing a video first. Is that the correct order? Yeah. So we have an intro video that Colonel Dockery's team has put together.
Rod, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. Like Brandon said, I'm Colonel Chuck Dockery, the CEO of the air station proper. I was on my way over here today, and I was driving over, and I got cut off by another vehicle, and so I pulled up at the next stoplight to, give him a piece of my mind. I looked over, I realized it was Ollie, and there was nobody to flip off in the driver's seat, and so I think that's one of the things, Brandon, that the working groups need to work out over the next 2 days is who do we flip off in the autonomous vehicle when it cuts us off? Doesn't get any better than that. Okay, so welcome to Miramar, in all sincerity. We're excited to have you all here. Brandon had a great slide up there with all the stakeholders and partners that are going to be working with us here for the next 3 days. We're very excited. To give a little context and kind of amplify what the video showed you, I'll talk very briefly about the mission of Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, and from my perspective, the 4 things that we do and maybe where you can pitch in on that. As we go on through the morning, I think you're going to see highlighted some of the creative tensions that we have working on a federal facility or a military facility as we move forward and try and be innovative. So again, like the video said, quite simply, the mission of Marine Corps Air Station Miramar is to provide a power projection platform for our tenant units. On a steady state day-to-day basis like today, that is reflected in the support that we give to the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing and to a lesser extent some of the reserve units that we have here for them to carry out their training objectives so that they can improve readiness and they're ready to go to a war fight somewhere in the world or to support a contingency operation. Once that contingency operation kicks off, then my mission changes, or I get a mission added to that, if you will. I still support my tenant units in building and maintaining their readiness, but I also owe the Joint Force, the greater Marine Corps plus Army, Navy, Air Force, I owe them a logistics hub so that they can project their own power in the Indo-Pacific region in support of any contingency that there is against probably one of our 3 out of our 4 main competitors that we have in that region, being North Korea, China, and Russia. So those are our 2 missions. Underneath all that, we do 4 things here at Miramar. We protect the forest, we project the forest, we preserve the forest, and we partner with the community. So when we project the forest, quite simply, what we aim to do is provide interference-free operations for our tenant units on a day-to-day basis. Not just the physical security aspect that you see at the gates, but that extends into other things like the cyber realm in particular. That's our interference-free operations and our protection line of effort that we owe to our tenants. We project the force, we provide that runway or those 2 runways out there so that we can get airplanes airborne and get them moving wherever they need to go. We preserve the force quite simply, mostly through MCCS, Marine Corps Community Services. And if I was to boil that down, I would say that we want to create happy warriors so that a young Marine can pick up and deploy on a moment's notice, and he knows that when he leaves behind, he or she leaves behind husband, wife, children, that they're going to be taken care of so that he or she can work on airplanes, or in terms of my main customer, Major General Imes, they can fly, fix, and fight while they're forward and they're not worried about what's happening back in the rear, and that's a happy warrior. And last but not least is what's probably most important is we partner with our community, and this is probably where you all come in today. I was talking to Monica England this morning from Plank, and I said, I really like partnering with local partners because we can do a lot of it face-to-face, and you all are here to partner with us. And if you can make us a 1/4% better and we can make you a 1/4% better, we're both winning, and we're both getting done the things that we need to get done, and we're both a 1/4% better, and we should be smiling at the end of the day. So I want to thank you all for being here to help us partner with our community and move forward in installations next. General Colwinese is here. I'm going to bring him up on stage now, Commanding General MCICOM. We're happy to have him, as well as we've got some other all-stars in the audience. Boogie Lionez is here from Marine Corps Base Hawaii. Al Trimble from Albany. Major Steve Harvey's here. You're going to learn why he's important later. He's not here to do Family Feud, but you're going to meet him later and see what an outstanding person he is. But, sir, that's all I've got, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. First of all, thank Colonel Dockery and Miramar. I mean, I know it's a tax. We did it to Hawaii and Albany. When we come here, they got a lot more things to do than to host this and all the support that's required. And they got their, I think, Facebook streaming and divids and all the Marines working this is a tax. And I know it's not something that everybody says, oh, great, I want to do it. But you've embraced it, and I think we're going to be better for it. So we've been doing this installation next for a little while and been evolving. At first I was a little aggravated about how slow we were coming out of the box. But I want to give you just a little bit of context of how I look at it and how everything's interconnected. One of the things in the military and the Marine Corps is no different. We got this Napoleonic staff. We have everything stovepiped and certain. We want everything to fit in a nice little box. So if your communications, you fit within the RG6 or S6. You have cyber over here, kind of interrelated now in it. You have certain people, even in data, who owns the data. Then you have the G4 with transportation. You have the G3 with operations. You have, for us, facilities in the GF, one of the bigger sections, and has a lot of responsibilities. Then within facilities, they're segmented. You have energy, and we're starting on public works and all these things. And what I found out is that we're trying to do this. If we have our own friction within our organization, because everybody needs to look at the problem together, and you have to come together to work these issues, because we then have all these roadblocks doing things, and we're knocking down those roadblocks and getting through it. And I really come to, it's all about data, and that's why we added data. It's about data. We're doing something down at Albany that's pretty exciting on a facility control systems. And the only vector that I say, and I'm going to go to that, the only vector that I don't think we need to have a business proposition is probably security. But the other vectors, we need to make a business proposition. And on mobility, it's pretty easy. I think we need to get rid of most of our vehicles and not have it. We don't want to be buying things. Let me just go down and talk about Albany a second, and I'll go back about we don't want to buy things. We want to buy services. Albany, we're down there. Facility control systems are pretty important. It's important if you're a cyber person, they're worrying about protecting the network. If you're a facility guy or gal, you're worrying about the facility itself. You're trying to, what's the maintenance, predict the maintenance part of it. If you're the energy guy, you're worrying about cost avoidance, savings of energy, and stuff like that. And it's a challenge. Our PRV is from 100 billion to about 77 billion, depending how you score it and what's actually ours and what's in other countries and things like that. So when you talk about that many assets out there, there's a business proposition. Our utility bills are off the chart, and if you're down in South Carolina, you might be paying 8 cents a kilowatt, and then during peak demand goes, I'm pulling these numbers out of my hat, but like 66 cents. And now we're building simulators and F-35 facilities, and they're very energy dependent, and they need AC to cool the systems down. And if those systems go down, they can't train. It's an operational impact. It's just not a HVAC for a barracks, which is important. So down in Albany, we're partnering with a couple different people, but it's really about data. Our data lies in Kansas City for our facilities. And so they're basically connecting the control systems to that data, to our GIS data, and doing a predictive maintenance and use some artificial intelligence to predict things that are going to go down, and then actually eventually print out what we call a Maximo, a work order, at a geolocation and send the worker to it prior to the thing actually going down. Now, I guarantee you, once we get this thing kind of figured out, we're going to be saving energy money. We're going to be saving facilities. You know, predictive maintenance. Right now, I say the way we do it in the Marine Corps is we wait till it blows up and then we replace it. We don't do a good job. We don't have a workforce that's necessarily trained. Because of the way we're set up in the government, these guys and gals aren't going to school every couple weeks. They're not journeymen. Even if you're out there doing this for a living, as a journeyman, you need continuously go to school and get in and kind of get credentialed in a new piece of gear and stuff. So our workforce, we're giving them new equipment and stuff, or new facilities to work on. It's very high tech, and that's why the partnership we're going to use, hopefully, that Brandon talked about, is actually empower these guys and gals when they're working on something. Because the way they kind of do it in the industry right now is they call somebody, a friend, on a phone and say, "Listen, I've never seen this boiler before. What should I need to do?" And they call the expert, and that expert will tell them what to do. So we're excited. But I'm telling you, all these things have a business proposition. Because when I lay it out, I guarantee we just need to kind of break down the silos, and it'll save us money. It'll save the Marine Corps money, and we repurpose it in other things. Now, technology is not cost. It's not, it's going to cost something. But I'm telling you, what we can do is defer some other costs and invest in this. So it's pretty exciting. The other frustrating thing is you got to change the way we think. Truthfully, I say this all the time, and it's not politically correct. We need young people. Old people like me aren't nimble enough to think through this. It's the younger minds who kind of are more open to this new kind of thing. And I guess I can't say that, some lawyer. But it's really the young people you need to infuse into your system, because they have a different way of thinking about things. They grew up on this stuff. It's about generating combat power at our bases. I would tell you that I don't think, even the Marine Corps, most general officers do not have an appreciation of what the base commanders do. and the responsibilities. I mean, they're the mayor, they're in charge of facilities, they're in charge of protection. Sometimes they own the schools, or they own them whether it's DODEA or not. They're on the base. They got to protect the families. They got to provide ranges. They got to control the air. They got fire departments. They got police departments, and it goes on and on. So it's pretty important what they do. And you think about all those efforts I just talked about, there's a cost to it. It's a lot of money to run installations. And I think in some ways we can better invest our money. I mean, I think in the near future, you're not going to come on a base and see a bunch of white vans and gear. That's going to be either some service provided or autonomous vehicles or something else. But that partnership is really important. And let me just talk about service as opposed to, we call PMC when you buy equipment. When you go buy something, it's, first of all, there's a lag. It's not like going down to the dealership and saying, give me those 5 cars. There's a process for doing it. And then there's a maintenance cost, a tail that goes with it. The thing we're working with Andrill right now, I think from force protection to a lot of things we do, and in the Secretary of Navy we'd call it non-core, things that we get outsourced, we can pay a service that would force, whether it's the Andrill providing a digital fortress, or whether it's autonomous vehicles. What's the business proposition that they can benefit and we can benefit on it? We don't need to buy a lot of things. We buy something that, especially technology, we go buy it now, and I'm a little biased. Even 3D printers, you're going to buy it. The day you buy it, it's probably outdated. It's kind of, I think back when the computers kind of in the early 90s. Go buy a computer. You buy the computer 2 weeks later, the new modem's out. You got to buy a new modem. And it was changing so quickly, it really was Moore's Law back then, that your computer was outdated within a year. And a lot of technology, you buy it through the military, and the systems commands, which are good people, but if you buy it for the base and stations, I don't believe that's the way to do it. I think a lot of our solutions are COTS solutions, our installations. And we just need to partner with them. And like an example is whatever the service is, we can buy a year or 2 year contract with a 3-year option. And they're refreshing the stuff. They're bringing in new technology. They're patching it. Because right now what we do is we buy something, and then if we want to upgrade it, there's another cost to it. And in the military and in the government, it's hard to move money around in certain cost centers. It's not like a profit and loss statement at a business where they say that absolutely makes sense, reinvest it, that will defer these costs or save these costs. So there's it's a lot of frustrations on our part, but I think we're knocking down the targets. This mobility, I think, could be a near win here. It really can be. We need the best of a lot of the stuff that we have on base. We don't need, in my view, certain bases might have a pole truck, and they only use it, I don't know, let's just say it's a couple times a month. But yet we bought, a $200,000-$300,000 vehicle probably, or maybe it's not that much. But it's going to sit there, and it's going to cost maintenance to fix it. We have to have a person to fix it. We have a person to drive it. And why don't we just have a service that somebody provides that to us in a contract? We believe that, the vehicles on base, they really, whether it's autonomous or a share ride or something like that, that's the way we need to go. We're spending a lot of money with things that are parked and wasting money. And then the last thing I'll talk about is just the partnerships themselves. The ecosystems that we kind of are forming, it all depends where you sit. If you're in California, the Air Board's very concerned with emissions. And they'll put money towards share rides or other things to do it. We have congestion at our gates. One of the things I think we're going to get at soon in some effort is an easy pass. It does not make sense how we do it now. Whether it's interrogating credentials on your phone to go through a thing, whether it's right now what it is. Here's the complication. At our bases in the morning, most of our bases, they kind of do a quick visual of the ID card and move you on because of the backup and the safety concerns. It's crazy. We should have able, and you could, there's plenty of ways of doing it. Technology's there, but we should have an easy pass coming on a base. There's some efforts in it. And we'd save then carbon emissions, we'd save safety, we'd save, time, right? People drive a long ways sometimes in California. A lot of people live in Temecula, and they drive up here. They're already on a road spending a lot of money and time is money. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I would just tell you this, is where you sit is a certain point of view, but the key to our success is the collaboration, whether it's in my Napoleonic type of staff and the bureaucracy within the government, or it's with the partnerships, the industry, the cities, communities, and others who we live with. We need your point of view. We need your input to solve it. And then help me come up with that business proposition. I guarantee it's there. I guarantee it's there. I can tell you how much money we're spending, and it's billions on our facilities. So I guarantee there's some money to say. And I'll stop there. This is good stuff. I thank Brandon. He's somewhat of a one-man show out here. All those in Installation Next that put this on. I've been really looking forward to this day, and I look forward to talking to you at Brace and getting your insights. All right, Brandon was giving me the dirty look. I was way over time, I can tell.
Thanks, sir. Gracias. Thank you, General. So we appreciate those comments. It's when we craft these visions, it's all about getting synergy between leadership and the aspirational. I keep using that. The aspirational goals of the Pentagon, all the way down to the gaps and the opportunities that exist and the collaborations that exist at the local level and at the facilities. And so whenever we craft these visions, that's really about building a narrative and building storytelling, if you will, that has everyone rowing in the same boat. And again, and not in this prescriptive way, but in an aspirational way, so that you can flex to the opportunities that present yourself. I'd like to mention, besides myself, we have a Booz Allen team here. You may have met Nicole Lott and Amanda Huntley. If you have questions about today and the flow of things, I'm going to walk you through a little bit more, but please come out to us and ask us. There's also Clarence Dingman from Barbaricum. We have Captain O'Reilly from our team back at the Pentagon as well. And so we'll be your conduit if you have questions. If you're doing exhibits, Ken King outside from NAVFAC, WARTEC, will be your point of contact for kind of the flow if we're having issues. And again, we'll set that up. We are going to come back to talking about mobility before we come to Jay Rogers for a keynote. And I want to do this so that you're better understanding what we've tried, where we think our problems are, and even more than that, it's the canvas that you're painting on. And we're going to utilize both Miramar and Camp Pendleton to do that. So first off, aspirational vision to date is that no matter if you are moving yourself or goods from point A to point B in and around a base, that you'll have multimodal opportunities to do it. That you will have options no matter where you are, whether it's having your food delivered via Uber Eats, or whether you're having a part delivered into the training area or on the airfield. There are options to get it there for you. Whether you're trying to get to work for the commute, or whether you live on base and you don't want to own a vehicle, that there are options available to you for how you get from point A to point B, no matter official business or personal reasons. And as the General mentioned, typically we have these stovepipes of excellence, if you will, where we only care about the official business, or we only care about meeting the Marines' needs from the personal side. Part of this ecosystem, part of these goals is how do we bring ourselves out of those silos and have multi-stakeholder, investment in where we're going. So again, the canvas that we're painting on. Miramar here, all of you see, almost everything that happens on the base is centralized in about a 2-mile by 3-mile area on the north side of the airfield here. So all your barracks, all of your housing, all of the workspace, everything that's happening on the airfield. 23,000 acres, 12,000 military employees that either live on a base or come onto base for work. It's a very centralized base. It's within the city of San Diego proper boundary. So very urban, very easy to get back and forth to the community, except for that gate, right? Now balance that with Camp Pendleton. Over 200 square miles, what did they say in acres? 125,000 acres, 49,000 military members that work on that base or live on that base. And here we have a very decentralized location. So if you're from the East Coast, you're picturing like small counties with little towns spread out all over the place. That's basically what you have in that area on Camp Pendleton. So these cantonment areas, and yet they're blocked from traditional supply and demand meeting of needs for those that are on the base, either for work or for living. So decentralized and typical of a rural. And so between these two bases, what you see is kind of the typecast of the types of facilities that we have throughout the Marine Corps. And so as we paint on this canvas, if you will, especially over the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, that's really going to help us have immediate, opportunities that we see on those bases, but the implications are to all of our bases, as we talked about. I'm going to cover some of these stats and paint a better picture for the type of mobility and the hidden costs of personal ownership of vehicles whenever we get to our first panel and the colonels and we're talking about the challenges of mobility on a base. We've talked about things don't just happen. You have to be very intentional. Again, supply and demand doesn't really apply within our bureaucracy. And so while you want ride-hailing, while you have ride-hailing out in town, or you have car sharing, or if you are in downtown San Diego and you see scooters or you see bike sharing, those things don't just happen. It doesn't migrate to the need in our environment. And so this is why it's so critical that we craft a vision of how are these components important to where we're going and facilitate the future of our bases. Troop and cargo movement, whether you're talking drone delivery, whether you're talking the future of air mobility and air taxis, if you will. You'll hear a little bit about that later. Those things will not happen in our environment at the same rate that they're happening out in town. And so how can we build this collaborative environment that unlocks those opportunities for us? Even electric vehicles. We had a major program 2 years ago to put electric vehicle charging on the base, but for government vehicles only. And then there's policy barriers to unlocking that for personal vehicle. So whether you have a cheap electric vehicle or you have a Tesla, you essentially cannot charge on a base. That is not meeting the demands of our customers, our constituents, if you will, that utilize and live on our bases. So what have we done to date? And again, you're going to hear a lot about these throughout the panels, and we've tried to craft the different panels. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this right now, but we've been fostering this collaborative opportunities and seizing up the opportunities that we can create collaboratively that are mutually beneficial to date. We've done lift on Camp Pendleton. We've done Lime on Miramar and Camp Lejeune. We've done a ways carpooling, dynamic carpooling with San Diego Association of Governments. We've tried meeting electric vehicles. So the state of California Commission has funded a vehicle-to-grid project, so hybrid electric vans that their energy storage ties to a microgrid and provides that resilience, going back to another of our vectors, to the base. You'll see more about Nikola out here, all-electric tactical vehicle, and we've partnered with SOCOM, Special Ops Command, on some of the things they've demonstrated with Nikola, and we are trying to find more opportunities. You'll hear in a moment in our keynote speaker, Jay Rogers, about our crowdsourcing, where we crowdsource and then rapid prototype a vehicle, one of which you'll see out here in the exhibit area. We've done vendor demonstration agreements with AirMap for UAS or drone traffic management here on Miramar. We've supported Customs and Border Patrol, or Border Protection, with their R&D contract with Planck Aerosystems, which you'll see, and you'll see in the exhibit area in collaboration with Nikola. We're working with Defense Innovation Unit for Moto AI, and a contract that they have, Moto AI, you'll hear about in the Urban Air Mobility panel later today. On autonomy, we've started autonomous vehicle proving grounds here on base in Miramar. Qualcomm, for the last year, has been utilizing East Miramar on the other side of the 15 on the hardball roads of our training area to develop and test their own R&D on connected and autonomous vehicles. That earns us a seat at the table to better understand where that market's going. You're going to hear from Qualcomm later today in our autonomous vehicle panel. We brought on robotic research, you'll hear about. Robotic research, 20 years of autonomy on national defense systems. Also the autonomous provider for the Ollie, who again, Jay Rogers will talk about here. They are our owner's engineer. They're our subject matter experts on the autonomous vehicle. Helped us craft the SOPs, the standard operating procedures of how we allow Qualcomm on to test, or how we have Moto AI come and test for drones or Planck Aerosystems. And then again, you'll hear about locomotors and the Ollie shuttle that we're doing on the base in Northern Virginia later this month. So we have been trying many things, but it's not good enough. All right? It's the opportunities that we've been able to craft ourselves. It's the collaborative, environment that has fostered it, but it still lacks some of the intentionality and the hard work on the vision of where we think we need to go. And again, that's what the design think process is going to do for us, and we'll cover that a little bit more. So what are our objectives for this 3 days? Today is about unlocking the creativity, both here in the crowd, through the panels, and in the exhibit area outside. We're fostering and enhancing the collaborative market, and then we're also working with you to craft that vision of the future that we then will make that, in our layman's terms, that's our commander's intent. That becomes where our marching orders are, so that we kind of have decentralized execution to move in that direction across all of Marine Corps Installations Command. This is typically our process. So, before I hand it over to Jay Rogers and the keynote, this is where we're at. So, opening remarks, concluding it here. After Jay talks to you, then we're going to have an announcement about our Resilience Crowdsourcing Challenge and some of the winners that we're going to have up on stage to recognize. Then we're going to go into our official and personal mobility panel, and then we have another panel, Mobility as a Service, before we break for lunch. We're going to have food trucks out under the trees over here in the exhibit area, just past Navia, that's doing the autonomous shuttle demonstration, where you'll actually be able to take rides starting at 11. So we've broken that lunchtime so that all of you are able to join any of the Marines that are coming from across the base or other surrounding area into the exhibit area. Then we're going to bring you back in for 2 more panels. Again, having our collaborative market, if you will, talking to you about where we're going, what we've been doing. The goal of the panels is that it's a continuation of the conversation. We've made this not a brief. We've made it a conversation that's not just starting today, but that's moving and progressing forward and bringing you alongside us as we continue that conversation in these different areas. Then at the end of the day, so you see after 1450, we'll give you a break for over an hour. Again, you time to go back out in the exhibit area before we come back in for a final panel and then closing remarks about the day. And so, again, we're excited about today and where it leads us. Nicola on the right side, Nicola and Planck will be doing their demonstrations every hour, I believe, here in the lot right behind us. And then the Navia shuttle on this side of the building will be going, again, starting at 11, where you get to actually take an autonomous ride. That's our laydown. I think we've covered what we need to. And again, we thank you, all the exhibitors that'll be here with us. We'll come back to that. All right. So, I want to welcome up Jay Rogers from LMI. On a couple projects over the last year and a half, he and his team, and so we're excited for you to hear more about it. I think we're good.
Good morning. Wow. General Colonese, thanks so much for your remarks. Marines and civilians, everyone who's assembled here today, all mobility nerds, thank you for uniting in this Bob Hope Theater. It's a joy for me to come and spend some time and share a few remarks and thoughts with you today. It's always amazing to me, thanks so much, it's always amazing to me how the Marine Corps creates connection and with intentionality makes action happen so quickly and with so few resources. So I served in the Marine Corps for about 9 years, and it was certainly part and parcel to why I'm here today, but the journey that it set me on is really the reason why I'm here today with you. So I was driving on base today, and I went down PFC Gonsalves Road, and I looked him up. He came out of Alameda to join the Marine Corps, and he earned our highest, nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor, through actions in Okinawa, where I served in the Marine Corps. And my first school in the Marine Corps was the Jungle Warfare School in the Motobu Peninsula, which is where he lost his life. And leaving from San Francisco today, where he came from, having processed into the Marine Corps from Alameda myself, much like him, it was a pretty amazing connection to have. And I'm going to tell you about another connection. When I was serving in Iraq, in 2005, 2 of my friends were killed. My first operations officer, first one that I ever had, and one of my scout sniper platoon commanders that I went through school with. Both of them were killed in vehicles. And today we're here to talk about mobility on installations. But the journey for me to come here today was really thinking about how we make vehicles and how they have the right features for us to be able to be great warfighters. And it was very frustrating to me when I started to ask around, why did my friends, why did my comrades, my fellow Marines have to die in combat for the fact that we couldn't figure out how to make better vehicles for the fight at hand. So all that in connection with the Marine Corps is what brings me here with you today. And I'd like to talk about shaping a mobility revolution. It is, at its heart, intentional to do that. And in the recent past, what we've seen is that out in town, through off-the-shelf technology, you see disruption of all of these products. Take the top line and you see how it falls to the bottom line, and they've been disrupted by digital. But sometimes that's frustratingly not accessible on a military base. And to me, that was one of the essential questions of how do we procure mobility? I know it sounds like such a focused topic, and that's probably why there's so many empty seats here today. Because the focus of mobility is not that interesting to so many people. But when you need it, it is critically interesting. So how to make that drop happen for mobility? You note most of the things that are at the top of the slide are really small things. They're electronics, many of which are made in Shenzhen in China. They've been shipped overseas in order for us to be able to buy them at the lowest dollar cost possible. So it's an acquisition, but tied to them is a service. And as General Colonese pointed out today, for the Corps to survive, continuing to buy things that are outdated from the moment that they come onto your installation, and also the fact that they are very expensive at unit cost, is a difficult way to move forward because they don't deconstruct easily. There's also a sustainment challenge, not just service, but afterwards, what do you do? In a warfighting scenario or in an installation scenario, what do you do to deconstruct the things that you've bought? So big manufacturing has been inured. It has been inoculated from the kinds of things that we just saw on the previous slide. Vehicles have not moved forward at the pace of digital. We don't think about making a vehicle that's fit for our needs as a service. Mobility as a service has not been something other than shared rides in bikes or vehicles that are there, but the Marine Corps has different needs. They have different needs for what it is that they need to make happen, and so thinking about that differently was at the core of LM Industries and where I got my start. So introducing our division, Local Motors, that is the world's first digital original equipment manufacturer, and it's powered by microfactories. The idea here was to take the tooling cost out of making a vehicle and to use digital instructions to deliver a vehicle as quickly as possible at the volumes that made sense. A little bit more about that. We built it with 3 core elements. The first one, you've heard Brandon Newell talk a little bit today about crowdsourcing. There's a challenge that's going on. We've seen crowd development of ideas for a little while. When I was leaving the Marine Corps and transitioning out to start this company, one of the things was Company Command that came out, which was an idea when you were coming back off of deployment to share best practices in theater where you were between company commanders, like I was, so that you could actually know when you're flowing into theater, what exactly is it? So it was a way to do basic intelligence preparation of your battle space when you went through, and it just naturally made sense. We can record things digitally, we can transition them to the next user. So for us, the first building block of making a digital OEM was building a global community and then connecting it with the digital thread to microfactories to get the mobility that we needed when we needed it and where we needed it. So a little bit on how that works. Traditionally, most people don't see that when you make a vehicle, mass is what you assume you're going to work with. And if you think of the development cost, it drives way up for a plane or a car or a bus or other things like that. So you want to make many hundreds of thousands of units to get that development cost amortized, and that's why the curve goes like that. When you think about building a digital OEM, you can flatten that curve, and that's where you see micro. Taking that very expensive development cost and saying that's unacceptable for delivery of vehicles and driving it down allows you to operate over in a place where you are in that orange area, and that's what our microfactories deliver. Otherwise, you got to make a lot of vehicles. And when you make a lot of vehicles, you got to make them all the same. And then you want people to buy them. You don't want them to go as a service. You want to chunk them out. You want to put them in dealerships. You want to put them in distributorships, and you want people to buy them. That is a 20th century model. That is what Henry Ford gave us, and that is not the future version of the vehicles when we need them, when we want them. So I've often said this. I heard it from somebody else, and I'll pass it along. Ignore the world when you make your product, and the world will ignore your product. But if you build what they want, they will pay you in loyalty, and it makes a great difference. So for us, going forward, I think of this. Why does the world need a digital OEM? It's because the user gets these benefits, and the user is tiered. It's not just an installation command or an installation commander or the person who is moving things at the time. It could be the goods, or it could be the actual Marines that are riding on. All of them are users, and giving them options, customization, choice, freedom. It's the same thing that you do in the civilian world, but these are the reasons why you build a digital OEM. So for us, it kind of looks like this. We take global co-creation, which includes Marines, servicemen. We started this with the US Army a long time back. When acquisition began to change a little bit, the Army was the first one to jump in with us and say, hey, we could do this differently for a paradroppable unit, but we've brought this forward to the Marine Corps, and I think it's really proving to be the way forward, and I couldn't have even imagined it when I started this company back in 2005. So local microfactories tied to the idea of global co-creation is how we power this revolution. So shaping what's next for us, this is Ollie. You'll see it outside. Ollie was developed in the last couple of years through our community. And really what it was saying, how can I deliver mobility as a service that could be bigger, smaller, it could move people, it could move goods, but really it was autonomous, electric, connected mobility. And that's what we did. Today, Ollie is a platform for connected mobility. The one that you'll see outside moves 12 people around, and it is completely autonomous and connected. It's made from a microfactory. So what you will see in the world, there are a coming load of shuttles that are around. You'll see some of them outside. But the difference between what we do as a digital OEM is we take the basic package and we configure it to the way that people need it and want it. So that it means you don't just have something to take things around. If your Marines say, I need something to carry something that's heavy, I need a specific thing where I need to track ammunition, I need something to be able to bring maintenance personnel, other things like that. That kind of change is what a digital OEM can bring you. And right next to Ollie, you will see a brave co-creation project, which was the modular logistics vehicle, which is born in that spirit, to take the guts of Ollie and turn it into something that's a totally different use case for Marines, in this case at the ammunition supply point in 29 Palms, that wanted something that was not an Ollie, but had the guts of what was in it. So microfactories are responsive to suppliers and customers, and that's their promise. And for us, a microfactory came from a definition that the Marine Corps taught me. It's a forward-deployed physical space connected to a global platform, and it is a place for rapid commercialization. It's a place for rapid product development, experimentation, and small batch manufacturing. That's what we mean when we say microfactory. It looks like this. We have two of them now. One of them is in Phoenix. Another one of them is in Tennessee right now, and they've created the vehicles that you see outside, and we expect to put more of them, one in Europe this summer, and more of them all over the world. They look like this. We print vehicles out of special polymers that we've developed in order to be able to make them and then deconstruct them. Today we can print a vehicle the size of Ollie in about 10 hours. So the general also mentioned 3D printing. It is true. These machines get obsoleted very quickly. They're not little tiny metal 3D printers that are printing a part to make a different part for something that you need when you're training. This is a whole vehicle. 10 hours, hit a button, pops out the other side. Assemble the parts on it, drives away. The first time we did this, it took us 40 hours. And that was in 2014, and it was half the size of what Ollie is out there, but it gave us the promise of what we could do today. So a microfactory looks like this, and the vehicles that drive out of it look like that. When you're done with it and it is obsolete, you can take the components off of it that still have a lifespan, you can chop up the material, and you can reprint with the material. We're the first company in the world to conduct crash testing with this material, and that is a challenge for a lot of people. But we have our customer at heart when we go through. This is a look at the inside of a printer. And if you gather around a little bit later, I can show you in action, but you hit a button, and on that white platen, the vehicle is built. Amazing what you can do today with technology, but what it means for the sustainment of the Marine Corps is even more amazing. So I'm going to say a little bit of what this means. So the Ollie Fleet Challenge was a way for us to take Ollie and put it out in the world and say, instead of buying it, how would you use this in mobility as a service? And we've run this challenge in a number of different places. And so you'll see the list that comes along here. And one of the third places we ran it was in the greater Washington, D.C. area. So Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And we asked and received 30 applications from installations, places, campuses that wanted to get an Ollie, and the winner, bar none, was Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall. And so we were deploying Ollie on Joint Base Meyer, which is basically the living area and the work area that's right up the hill from the Pentagon, for those of you that don't know. And this really gives us a good beachhead to think about how we can move on a military installation, and one that has a ton of mobility needs. A lot of injured service members, a lot of people that are civilians moving on and off, not a lot of access to mobility between housing and the various facilities that are around. And of course, one of the great use cases that's right there is Arlington National Cemetery. Being able to get disabled service members in our second and third phase, we hope to be able to bring people to the cemetery so that they can go and see their fallen Marines and fellow servicemen. So we're very happy to be deploying there in a real use case as part of this, and it is in no small part to the efforts of Lieutenant Colonel Newell and the Installation Next team to think about linking that from there at Joint Base Meyer back over here to making that happen again on Camp Pendleton and Miramar. So to give you a look at it right now, phase 1 on Joint Base Meyer will look like this. It's 3 months, it's a private road pilot, 25 miles an hour roads, and it will basically be a deployment on the installation, which is kind of a weird kidney-shaped looking base. And it's not that easy. There's a big hill in it and all those kinds of things. And if you can imagine that if you're in a wheelchair and you need to get someplace, it's massively difficult to get to public transit. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is going even further and going to basically from there to the Pentagon and the orange and blue lines, 11-minute route. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the kind of thing that we need all over our bases and installations, whoever the provider is. But it really is one of those things which we are on the cusp of being able to show, and it fits very much with what General Colonice's vision was right there. And to be able to partner, I remember the first meeting we had with Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall, we met with the installation commander, who has a very difficult job. He was a warfighter that came from the Army, special operator, and really the shock for him of what it was like to provide for the Big Six and an injured Lance Corporal, and all of the service members that come along, and the very high security needs that happen there. He said, how could I ever imagine renovating our mobility needs? So he took us outside to see the Meyer Flyer, which is literally an old school bus that is difficult to keep up, and it provides limited mobility to the people on base. His vision was really what got us to make this happen today. And it's such an exciting thing to see it happen in such a short period of time. I think that meeting happened 2 years ago, and in between there, we've built Ollie, renovated it, done the modular logistics vehicle challenge and come back, and now we're deploying on Joint Base Meyer. That's speed. The next thing that we've done that I want to talk a little bit about today, and really the last item, is what we've done with CoLab. So starting about 1.5 years ago, we got together with a couple of people, DIUX. We got together with some great intrepid Marines at 29 Palms, and with the neXt Law group out of then General Dana's command. And we decided that we wanted to go after something that was beyond Ollie. And so we took and sat down with a group of people in a design thinking workshop, and we said, what would it mean if you were going to renovate the work that goes on at an ammunition supply point? And so we dug in, we went through, and in this collab process, we developed what we would call a modular logistics vehicle. This was the general idea. Develop it, plan it, source it, make it, deliver it, and support it. Whole sustainment. Mobility as a service for an ammunition supply point. And with something that you need. Now this big chart it's this onion is the way that I call it, has something that will come out of it. On this side over here, on your left, is crowd, the users. On the other side, all the way on your right, is the customer who gets it at the end. They're not always the same people. And out at the edges of this onion, sort of in the yellow circle, you have a lot of ideas that are coming in. And then as you get closer down to the purple circle, the blue circle that's over on the right side, what you will see is you see that you have a real need for instructions, serviceability, all of the things that are kind of hardcore. They're no longer ideas. So as you move generally from the left to the right on this, you're moving towards something that is a hard asset that needs to be delivered on time. And that's what our co-creation community handles on its digital thread. And so partnering here with us, we had the great help of some really amazing partners, Siemens, Deloitte, and again, the Marines at the center of it to be able to make this real. And so for the Marine Corps, future forward making of future forward products is what came out of it. Along that thread, co-creating those things, managing the digital thread, and making them is a sort of easy three-part way of thinking about all of those assets that are all of those steps that go along in the creation of an asset. So this modular logistics vehicle challenge was this, a hackable vehicle that isn't hackable from a point of view of from an intrusion perspective, but it's hackable by the Marines in order to be able to get what they want, and providing Marines with on-base flexibility at any given time. There were a couple of needs, 4 to be precise, that we needed. Personnel movement was the first one, 6 or more people. The next one was administrative support, computers, printers, labeling, other things like that that were necessary for the ammunition supply point. And then there was mechanical support in order to be able to bring generators, fuel tanks, tools, other things like that. And the last one was construction support. These were the things that the Marines told us. We need personnel, we need admin, we need construction, we need maintenance. Those are the things that we need in this vehicle. And we went out and we took it, and this was the first answer that the community gave back. This happened and was delivered in roughly less than 60 days. So didn't make it yet. This was a concept that was delivered on the digital thread. We then went forward and we launched a refinement challenge, and the refinement challenge delivered this vehicle, the HAT 2.0. The first vehicle was designed by a community member that's out of Romania, and the second vehicle was designed by a community member that's out of India. So it goes to show that we're not looking for somebody that's on base to take the ideas from the servicemen and women that gave us the ideas of what to do. We asked somebody to challenge and deliver something that was there, and the HAT 2.0 is the answer. You'll have the opportunity to see it outside, just a prototype for where we are, and we hope to bring it to bases and stations for the needs that they have through a microfactory. So that's a history of what we've done in this short period of time since I've left the Marine Corps, and there have been so many partners that have made it happen. The connection and the action that the Marine Corps happens to make these targeted missions happen always astounds me, and it's a huge pleasure and honor to come and share those thoughts with you. So thank you today. I'll be around, and then we'll be sitting on a panel for autonomous vehicles with our partners, Robotic Research, so it's great to be able to have them here today, and so thank you. The revolt is happening off base, and it's happening on base, and we're excited to be part of it. Cheers.
Thank you, Jay. All right, that was great. Thanks so much. So I encourage you to take the time, especially in the exhibit time, to talk more to Jay and his team and understand more about what we've done in those 2 projects. You know, I'll just highlight a couple things. While I'm speaking about this, next up, we're gonna bring up our crowdsource, Resilience Crowdsource Challenge winners. And so if all of you have told you I'm bringing you up on stage, now's the time. If you'd kind of congregate here on the side, and then I'll bring you up after this. So we mentioned the Ollie Challenge and us bringing the autonomous vehicle into Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall next to Arlington Cemetery later this month. That was a product of this collaborative market. The Assistant Secretary of the Army for Energy, Installations, and Environment joined us in that. An Army lab out of Illinois actually joined us in that project. We've actually fostered a relationship with Amazon Web Services for that project. And so, again, bringing the narrative to why we do these things and where we're trying to go to the opportunities that present themselves. Sometimes they present themselves on our side, the government side of the fence. Sometimes they present it on industry side, and that was a challenge run by local motors. And so that's a great example. The other one he talked about was the crowdsourced design and rapid prototyping solution, which has been an incredible opportunity for us to understand how all that can be done. I would point out, so we did a promotional video for the Ollie back in the Ollie announcement for Virginia. And so my son and I, so my family's here in the crowd today. They always tell me, Dad, I thought you were a Marine. I think you just talk and you talk to people on the phone and you sit on your computer. And so one, thank you, so that I get to see that, well, yeah, I do just talk and sit on the computer. But we actually produce some opportunity that's out of all of this. But one of the things is my 10-year-old son came with me to Chandler near Phoenix in Arizona, right? And so we went to the assembly line at Local Motors. And we saw for this promotional video how they were building and how they designed it, and we rode in it. And it's about unlocking those opportunities, unlocking the creativity of he wants to be a Marine one day, the future Marines, and the opportunities that they're going to have, that they're helping us shape, that we're shaping for their future. And we'll talk about, we're looking at 2035 for mobility and what installations look like. But we've got to start now to create that future. All right, so now we're going to bring up some of our winners from the Resilience Crowdsourcing Challenge. So again, I want to frame the picture. Back in January, we had a similar crowd. We didn't do an industry day. We had about 100 folks from other agencies, from industry, and service members and civilians that joined us. We went through a 3-day design think process. We crafted those visions around communications. We crafted it around water and energy, logistical mobility, and food. What does the future look like so that we can sustain our mission no matter what happens external to the base for 14 days? So then with that aspirational vision, we then unlocked a crowdsourcing challenge with MD5. Matt, MD5, we did a rebrand. That is now National Security Innovation Network. MD5 has a whole portfolio of things they do from the Office of Secretary of Defense level to incubate innovation throughout our service. One of the things that you may have heard about in the past is Hacking for Defense, which they fund. Other thing is that they host crowdsourcing challenges, and we've taken advantage of that. And so with that, we opened it up for about 30 days to the crowd for solutions that could be generated with us. I have a couple stats here. Nicole in the back, I think, hey, right on cue. So we had 62 ideas coming from academia, industry, other service members. And we closed this, I think it was on April 5th. And immediately we were looking at, okay, how do we take the next step? How do we either look at it if it's technical and see how we can craft and what it means for us, or if it's a non-traditional type solution that's going to lead to more collaboration, how can we seize upon it? And so what I would frame here is that I'm bringing up some of those collaborations that we can seize upon now, and we're calling them our initial winners, right? We still have some analysis and some vetting that we're doing on more technical solutions that were, mostly provided by industry. And so I'm going to call up 3 sets of winners and the next steps that we're doing with these concepts. And so first up, Lieutenant Edwards. All right. And if you go down to the end with Matt. Thanks, Matt. And I'll walk through each of these when they're all up. Next up, I have Chris Whaler. I have Laurie Mulligan. I have Ron Zick. Do you have Dave Ross in the crowd? All right. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks, Ron. All right. And the next up is Major Steve Harvey. And Sarah? All right. Hey, great. Great to meet you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read for this. I'm going to talk just a quick comment about the concept and what we're doing next for each of these. So first up, on your right, Navy Lieutenant Patrick Edwards. All right, you're not all used to our uniform, so that's a Navy uniform. He proposed the development of a cloud-based building information and modeling of critical facilities and utility infrastructure. Patrick is actually beginning an MD5, so now National Systems Innovation Network. Did I get that right? Ensign. Fellowship this week. So he actually just came down from San Francisco. He just started his fellowship yesterday. So he has a fellowship through Ensign where he's working with Fieldwire, a small company in San Francisco, where he's developing this program for naval facilities for the National Capital Region, which is his parent command, so back in Northern Virginia and D.C. area. Patrick will focus on MCICOM's resilience objectives as he develops and implements the programs over the next year. In general, if I could have you come up and help me thank each of these. On stage is Matt Gradius of Ensign, who both hosted the challenge for us and has also created the fellowship for Patrick that we are joining in for the collaboration. So give me a round of applause for Lieutenant Edwards, all the way on there. Oh, I was supposed to do this. All right. Next up. So we actually brought two different concepts proposed together on this next one. And then we also have industry partners that are helping us with Next Step that also offered, solutions in the crowdsource. And so on the stage with us is Chris Whaler. All right, raise your hand, Chris. All right. Who's not here is Dave Ross, who's actually stationed here at Miramar, but couldn't make it today. So we have paired co-winners Chris Whaler and Dave Ross as they propose concepts related to telecommunications as a utility. Chris is from the Marine Corps Installations Command. He comes from the enterprise level. David is here at MCAS Miramar and focused on the facilities level. Their proposals aligned well with two other proposals from industry, both AT&T's FirstNet proposal and Verizon's 5G Living Lab proposal. Representing AT&T is Ron Zick, and representing Verizon is Lori Mulligan. All right. We will be sending Chris and David to spend time with both AT&T and Verizon to further develop this concept. And so we're very excited about the opportunity both to have leaders at the enterprise level and the facility level craft that vision of where we're going, but also for AT&T and Verizon to join us in that and crafting that forward. So give me a hand congratulating them. All right. And then next up, Major Steve Harvey from MCICOM. MCICOM is on Camp Pendleton. He proposed sending Marines to Amazon's Training with Industry program as market forecasting on cloud computing and services. Amazon opens the doors to service members to learn across their entire portfolio at both Amazon and Amazon Web Services. On stage with Steve is Sarah Martin. Sarah leads this program from Amazon out of Seattle, correct? And the Marines sent to Amazon starting in August will be our first one. We'll focus on how Amazon Web Services meet the sustainability and resilience needs of their partners and customers. The Marines will use this as market forecasting that will directly support our resilience initiatives, especially for communications. And so I want to congratulate Steve and the pipeline that he's helping us create for this, both for MCICOM and for MCICOM, and again, having Sarah here. Congratulations. So part of us bringing up, please do. I'm doing a lot up here, sir. I'm doing my best, sir. Thank you, General. We brought them up stage both to recognize them and give you an opportunity to talk to them for the rest of the day. Whether it's about the training with industry and how the Air Force is leveraging it and how we first heard about it with Amazon, or whether it's about 5G and Verizon, AT&T FirstNet, which you'll see in the exhibit space, or whether it's with Matt and learning more about Ensign and what they do for Office of Secretary of Defense and all of the services to incubate where we're going. And so again, I want to thank all our winners and thank you for submitting. Applaud one more time. Thank you. Thank you, General. All right, thank you all. All right, so we are going to take a break. I've been having you in here for a bit. All right, we're going to take a break. Somebody on our team give me a time hack of how long our break is for. Okay, 10 minutes. I've got 10:05, so 10:15. We'll be back in here for our first panel. Thanks. I think the Duncan, they may have coffee, they may not, but they're outside.